All right, good. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for responding positively to our invite to this our second, members meeting for the year. We'll just wait a minute or so for others, and then we'll start the meeting. Thank you. Good morning once more, ladies and gentlemen. I see members are still coming in, and I'm just letting them in. If you could just bear with us for a minute or so. Thanks. You see, that's exactly what I was trying to avoid, Tsepiso. The meeting has started, I'm chairing the meeting, and I'm answering calls. You know that? I mean, really. Yeah, Yeah, please. Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second Savrala members meeting. And I see now at least the house is almost full. People are still coming in. However, I think we won't waste time, and we'll just start the meeting. I'd like to just welcome everybody, and we look forward to the engagements this morning. We have quite a lineup that's going to conclude basically with a guest speaker at around 10:30. So we're going to try our best to make sure that at least everything is being covered.
Savrala's meeting nou weer van mute afgegaan.
If I could just ask every member to, all the members to just if I could just ask members to mute themselves, please, I'll appreciate. I hope there's sound now. Sorry, Mohammed. I hope there is sound now. I think our administrator just muted me when that sound came through. All right, people are still coming in. Thank you. All right, admit. All right. I think we're ready to roll. I just need to establish if, you know, I can't see from where I am. Okay, there you are. Brian has joined in, and I hope that Granville is in the meeting as well. But I'll go ahead and start the show. The agenda was circulated along with the minutes by our secretariat, and I'm sure everyone has received you know, the agenda accordingly. I'd like to just perhaps before we move on, and if I could just perhaps start with our you know, competitive notice, which we do in all our meetings, just to indicate that you know, we were basically you know, we've been asked to remind all of you in attendance, you know, that this forum is basically meant to discuss, you know, matters affecting the industry, and in no way we are going to be looking at any collusion of sorts. Just in a nutshell, that's what that competitive notice says. I think it's important, particularly in light of the strict competitive laws in our country. It's important that we flag this in every one of our meetings. My name is Sandy Lensawane. I'm the General Manager of Savrala. I'd like to just welcome you all in this, our second members meeting. We were meant to have a meeting earlier on, I think just before mid-year. Unfortunately, you know, a whole lot of things, including some of the restrictions that you know, we've had as a result of COVID. We've had to move that. However, you know, I think this is also just fine in that at least you know, a whole lot of things have happened that we felt that it's important right now to provide some sort of feedback. And as I indicated, the agenda was circulated to the members. This is basically the agenda that we're going to go through this morning. The minutes were also circulated to all the members. We'll go through the minutes and just reflect on them. Any sort of apologies, I'll appreciate if people could perhaps, you know, indicate and perhaps use the chat, you know, the chat function to indicate any sort of apologies, or they could basically just shout out and just indicate any sort of apologies. I have not received any apologies from where I am, you know, as the Savrala, you know, the General Manager. However, if there's any, I'll appreciate if perhaps people could indicate. I'll do the welcome just now. We'll go through basically the minutes, matters arising from the minutes, and then an update on both the car rental and the leasing, you know, sector. I think it's important as well to just give an update on ARTO, and then what's going on in the MOTI 21 as well, what developments there are. And we'll then look at the Charity Golf Day. We have a guest speaker by the name of Dominic Pittert, who is the CEO of Inexico. They will join us around 20 past 10. Shortly after that presentation, our president will then take us through, you know, basically just give his final remarks, and we'll confirm, you know, the next meeting accordingly and close. So thank you very much once more, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's important in these meetings to just reflect and you know, on where we are, and that's exactly what I'll be doing. You know, 2020 and 2021 has been a very challenging year for the general industry, certainly for Savrala. We worked, you know, very hard with other partners, e.g., your TBCSA, which is the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, on all tourism-related issues. We worked alongside with the BUSA, who are the apex business organization in South Africa, and certainly with Business for South Africa, B4SA, as it's particularly known. A temporary business platform for business coordination, during the COVID-19 pandemic, looking at microeconomic policy influences, advocacy, representation on relevant global and strategic direction. So this organization we worked very closely with, and I know a whole lot of you may have been receiving a lot of information that came from Business for South Africa, that we've tried to keep members abreast on developments, particularly as it relates to COVID. We are delighted, that Savrala has managed, to grow in membership. Despite the challenges that we face as a country, but as a world as well, our industry has really been decimated, as you know. The 2020 financial year, results will be discussed in the AGM, which will take place in the October sort of timeframe. And I'm sure members will have an appreciation as well on, the status, the financial status of Savrala. So I just want to indicate that our 2021 budget was approved by the NEC, and our 2021 membership fees reflect an inflation sort of based increase on 2020 fees. And I'd like to just make an appeal. I know that I've knocked at a whole lot of doors of some of the members. I just want to make an appeal and urge, all outstanding, members to please, process those invoices that were due in July already. Process them expeditiously by at least the end of August. So as I indicated, this year has really been tough. So which is why a decision was taken by the NEC to at least come up with an inflation-related sort of increase. Whilst on there, let me also just I'd like to just welcome all the executives present here this morning. I'd like to welcome certainly our NEC who are in attendance here, and all the members certainly. And I've indicated that we have grown as an organization despite all the challenges that we've faced, but we've kind of managed to grow. And I'm proud to also just indicate that despite all the challenges and the economic challenges that the country faced, that's seen some of our strategic partners basically, close shop. Some of the businesses close shop, but we don't have any member. We cannot report on any member that has closed shop in 2021, 2020, 2021. For the benefit of the new members that have joined us, who I will introduce shortly, I think it's also important to just, introduce the NEC, which I will do very shortly. I think it's important to just introduce the NEC. The NEC was elected in October 2020, as you know, in an AGM that took place online. And then, in fact, the Savrala president is Kone Fente, and the vice president is Derek de Vries, from Standard Bank. I'm sure you will be hearing from Kone later this morning. And then the chairman of rental sector, or the rental section, is Granville Salmon, who's the PACE car rental director. And then the vice chair is Ramasela, who's the CEO of Evis. On the leasing side, we have Brian Ross, who is an executive at 58 Fleet. He's the chairman of the leasing section. You will also hear from him. I just thought it's important for you guys for the members to at least see some of the leaders. And then the vice leasing, sectional chair is Linda Kambula. We have two members that are co-opted in the executive as well in the NEC. Martin Layden, who's the CEO of Europe Car, and Bram Krelen, who is the CFO at Hertz Car Rental, and myself, obviously, as the general manager. Thank you very much. So that's basically the NEC that basically sees to the well running of Savrala. I'd like to just, also just thank them for all the support throughout this period. On that note, let me just also welcome our new members. We have, new members. I did indicate that despite, all the challenges that we faced as a country, despite all the challenges that we faced as a country, we have managed to, let me just correct this one. Sorry, it looks like, I don't know what technology is doing now. This thing has moved. Just apologies. Oh, there you are. Okay, great. We've managed to, admit a whole lot of members. In fact, we were flooded with applications for some reason, but Savrala has introduced very stringent, processing of membership, and I'm pleased to welcome these new members: MDZ Fleet Solutions, ADN Fleet Rent, Simunye Fleet Management, Hambanati Car Rental, and RA Car Rental Solutions. I'd like to just welcome these new members. Thank you very much. You may recall that even in the last meeting, we welcome just about 6 other members. So really, we are seeing tremendous growth in membership, despite where we are as a country. All right, and then we'll move on to the minutes. The minutes were circulated to yourselves, to all the members, and I'd like to just perhaps, in the interest of time as well, and I assume that the members have had a look at them, and I'll just reflect on those and just request for any sort of comments, if there are any matters arising from the minutes, without wasting any time, just so that at least these are covered. I think as per normal, I'll just give some time for the members to reflect on them, and then if there's any who can indicate and indicate that they capture the essence of what was discussed in the last meeting.
Was captured correctly from our side.
Thank you very much. Any seconder? All right.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. And then on the matters arising from the minutes, we did reflect there's a whole lot of matters that are in the agenda, basically that are continuing, because a lot of what we are doing is basically just a work in progress. I could not identify any matters arising that I would flag to the members. However, I'll just give some time for the members to just reflect on these, if there are any matters arising. Okay. A lot of what was covered in the minutes will be again, discussed and included in the agenda. So I'll basically just take it that there weren't any sort of matters that are arising from the minutes. So at this stage, I'd like to just start with the perhaps the main business, which is basically the updates on both car rental and the leasing section. Now, I indicated that it's important for us, whilst I do the the background work, it also just gives, these meetings give an opportunity for the sectional leaders to also just at least address the members. So I'll ask Grenville, who will take us through the car rental statistics, and then shortly thereafter, Brian will also just take us through the leasing statistics, and then I'll handle all the other updates afterwards. Grenville.
Good morning. Good morning, everybody.
Thank you.
Sandila, do you want to bring up the next slide? Okay, I don't know if everybody's got the same view as me, but on mine, okay, there we go, the bottom. So obviously there's been a huge dip in revenue, but what's interesting this year is that this year is actually worse than last year for Jan to July. But I think the important things to remember is last year we still had a pretty good January, February, March. And then July this year, we also had a lockdown, which impacted things. So mainly what I'm going to refer to today is just really compare 2019 to 2021, because I think that gives you a good indicator of the dip in business that's happened. In reality, comparing to last year, there's too many anomalies to really compare. But last year we were down 37% from 2019, and this year an additional 7% from last year. So it just goes to show how low business is this year. But as we get onto the next slide, you'll see it's not all doom and gloom. So here you can see from January and February and March, which are usually our best months, we actually had an increase in revenue in April and May. Obviously, during June, they announced the lockdown, and July sort of bore the full brunt of the lockdown. So there was a dip in June and July, but April and May were looking extremely good and very positive in terms of maybe reaching somewhere towards where we were previously in 2019. In terms of fleet size, remember this is the average fleet year to date. So the average fleet has been 39,000 compared to sort of 70,000 in 2017 and 66,000 in 2020. But the interesting thing is, usually what would happen is the fleet would get to about 80,000 in the peak every year, and then it would drop to about 60,000 during the dip, which is usually July and August every year. So without that extreme peak, it's actually not that bad to have an average of 39,000. And in July, with the lockdown, the fleet actually dropped to 35,000, which has brought that number down quite significantly. And again, if you look at the bottom, there's the dip is almost from the average that it used to be, it's almost 50% of what it was, the fleet. And then the utilization this year is as good as what it was in previous years. And that is the positive that's coming out of this. Utilization is good. And you'll see on the next slides that the length of rental is very good. You can go to the next slide, Sandile. So this is just shows you the fleet. And you can see how the fleet was actually growing into April and May, and then the huge dip off in June and July, which, like I was saying, that March and April and May were very, very positive for us. And just on this graph, just be aware that the bottom is not zero. So you can see in January and February, the fleet was 50% of what it had been previously in January and February. And that's mainly due to the fact that airports are not, flights and airports are not where they used to be. Next slide, Sandile. Thank you. Okay, so this is the number of rentals. And this is interesting because on the next slide, you're going to see that the length of rentals extended, but the actual number of rentals is way down. And that's obviously airports create a lot of volume of short rentals. And without those, what we're seeing is that the number of rentals is less than half of what it was in 2019. But the actual volumes that we're achieving are a little bit more than half of what they used to be. And as you saw on the first slide with revenue, we actually significantly above half in terms of revenue. Next slide. Yeah, this is rental days. So you can see the rental days, if you compare 2019 to 2021, half would be about 5.2 million, and the number of rental days is 6. So it's significantly above 50%. And then obviously this gives you a good idea of how corporate government, inbound, local leisure and replacement, their percentage of the total market. So corporate has gone up by 8% from 22 to 30%, and replacement business has gone up by 20% from 20 to 31. So those are the sort of stable, and local leisure is still around about the same. So you can see government inbound has dropped massively, and that's where we're losing out as an industry, is the inbound. So the quicker we can get off those red lists, the better. Okay, Sandile, next slide, please. Okay, this is where I was explaining about the length of rental. So that in 2019, the average length of rental was 6.5 days. And that's increased to almost 9.5 days per rental now. And that's very good for our profitability, because there's less work needed. And it also helps with the utilization to have long rentals. So, yeah, that gives you a very good idea of where things have gone. And even replacement business, as the days have increased, which just shows things don't happen as quickly as they used to. And obviously corporate, the length of rental has almost doubled, or more than doubled, should I say. So that's obviously, without those airport rentals, it's the average has moved upwards. Cool. Well, I think that's the last slide, Sandile.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Grant. I think
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks. I think just just an observation again, perhaps to add to what Grant, highlighted, that the reported revenue for the year to July window was about 7% down on the same period in 2020. But the month of July alone, the revenue was about 22% up on last year. So because last year was also a terrible year, as you know, and on the fleet size, we spoke much about one of the key measurements that we look at, which is fleet utilization. The rental fleet size across South Africa. It was reflected. You may recall it, 39,500 units in size. This is just about 41% lower than the fleet size in July last year, and 1% smaller than the fleet size in June 2021. It's interesting, when you look at other regions as well, the Free State was the least impacted region on a year-on-year basis, at 23% down on the first 7 months of 2020. But the Gauteng region, as the biggest market with the largest fleet, was 31% lower than last year. And as Granville indicated, the fleet utilization in July 2021 was reported at 71.7. I think it's fairly good, having our fleet size has come down tremendously. But it was really up on July 2020 by about 48.9%. So these are really interesting times for Savrala. But certainly, I think as we work closely with the likes of TBCSA on tourism, advocating for opening of our borders, the removal in the red list, as Granville indicated, but also I think our hope lies in the vaccination process as well. Thank you very much once more. So at this stage, I'd like to just call upon Brian Ross to take us through the leasing update. Brian, over to you.
Thank you, Sandile, and welcome everyone this morning for attending the session. Sandile, we can go to the next slide. This is a summary slide, and thank you, Sandile, for preparing it with the assistance from Lightstone. It's a very busy slide with lots of information, and basically it's broken into 4 sections. The first talks about basically the size of the traditional leasing business. Around about 90,000 units is the size of the cake as it stands at the moment. Then we've got supplemental business in the form of some members sell service and maintenance plans, and they also supply service and maintenance plans to OEMs in some cases. So those units sold this is obviously reporting period first quarter, was 78,000 units. And then in terms of the growing managed maintenance car park, that's close to 300,000. And at the bottom, we can see that, as highlighted by Sandile at the bottom, that the leasing members bought 6,780 new vehicles for the first quarter 2021. In the next basically 4 slides, each of these groups that I mentioned is superimposed on a time period, so the information will become more valuable as you see the trend on each of these sections that I mentioned. Sandile, you can move on to the next one. So this is the first one. So this slide basically reflects the traditional FML business, where most of the leasing members started with before they started diversifying into other forms of business. And as you can see, it's comprised basically of two groups of types of contracts. The one is what we refer to as full maintenance lease. And in those, and with these contracts, the leasing members basically take full risk on the vehicle, be it the finance risk, the maintenance risk, and the resale risk on the vehicle. And that's supplemented by what we loosely group as operating rental contracts. And the only difference between that and the first that I mentioned is just the fact that on them, the leasing company doesn't incur any maintenance risk. So you can see we've seen a huge decline from before, well, if you compare before COVID with where we are now, basically 18,000 units have been wiped out, showing the devastation. But I think one needs to put that into context that compared with our colleagues on the rental side, as Grenville spoke earlier, obviously not as severe impact by virtue of the fact that obviously our customers are locked into long-term legal agreements. But you can still see, even with that in place, a lot of companies have closed their doors, and you can see the devastation in terms of 20% of the book being wiped out. You can see corporate government business has been quite flat over the period, actually with a slight growth year on year. So we can go to the next slide. So this slide basically talks to the fact that some of our members do sell service and maintenance plans. They've basically diversified their business and they do sell service and maintenance plans. In some cases, it's as backup to OEM's product that are being sold, and for most part, it's more service and maintenance plans that are sold through vehicle dealerships countrywide. And in this slide, pretty much this mirrors the NAAMSA sales over the period. So as the NAAMSA sales declined, obviously pro rata, the selling of service and maintenance plans decreased by the members. And as the NAAMSA sales are recovering, we're also seeing the fact that it's slowly getting better. On the government side, it's
hi, how are you?
Spectacular. It's
Good, good. Tell me, do you guys do? And you have a branch in Randburg, right?
Do you want to mute yourself there, please?
Thank you, Sandile.
Sorry, Brian.
No, we can go to the next slide. So this slide talks about again, another diversification on the leasing members, where they've branched out in terms of doing what's called maintenance contracts. And basically what that refers to is where we basically, because of the infrastructure that the leasing members have put together, they are in a good place to basically do the administration of the authorization of maintenance events and the paying of invoices on behalf of customers. And most of the members provide these services. And you can clearly see that, I mean, for me, the interesting bit about this slide is the fact that we've seen some very interesting growth. And for the first time, the government business, by providing these services, will actually surpass the corporate business, which is a very interesting trend. So it really shows you that the leasing members have seized on the opportunity during the pandemic to basically look at any avenue in terms of growing business. And you can clearly see that they've had considerable success with getting more business from government, which is a very interesting and positive trend for the leasing members. If we move on to the next slide. No, we've gone back, Sandile. Next slide. And the next slide. There you go. This slide basically also shows you it's a sad slide because it really shows you the new vehicle purchases by the leasing members. And you can see it looks as though it's fallen off a cliff. And in this case, the graph actually goes to zero. So it's not giving you an unfair picture. And basically, the new vehicle sales have halved over the period caused by the pandemic. And in a lot of cases, because of the fact that the leasing cake hasn't increased over the last couple of years, this is a reflection of current contracts that have come up for replacement, and where the customers predominantly have elected not to replace. So you can really see, yes, there's been some upward trends since the midst of the COVID pandemic, but still we're way off compared with what we've been in the past. And we can clearly see, I think things that have contributed to this slide has been the fact that we've seen some massive, it's obviously been driven by the poor performance with the rand-dollar, rand-euro exchange rates, because we've seen some massive vehicle inflations. When I was looking at a model last week, where it was actually one of the popular Toyota models, and the vehicle new price inflation went up by more than 20% in 3 years' time. So what we now faced is the fact that the customer is unable to replace the vehicle like for like with the same vehicle, and what we're seeing is customers are actually downsizing, and even in some cases considering vehicle car allowances, which we're obviously not keen on. But I think, again, so this is the last of the slides, and it gives you a snap view of what has happened in the leasing industry. Thank you, Sandile.
Thank you very much, Brian. Perhaps I must just also indicate that a decision was taken by the leasing section to report, quarterly performance in terms of just the statistics, looking at the various key measurements that were agreed. But also, unlike the rental section, which reports on a monthly basis, I think it's important to just indicate that for the new members, I'll be knocking at their doors as well, and getting them in touch with Lightstone, who handles, as you know, the reporting, who manage all the reporting for us, to make sure that at least we are in line with what the requirements of the Competition Commission. So certainly we'll reach out to them and provide them with the reporting templates that they will start reporting as well on a quarterly basis. But that is the picture of basically where we are. I think in terms of just the statistics, both on rental and leasing. And these statistics and conducted basically, they are run and managed by Lightstone as an independent partner, as required by the Competition Commission. And as you know, most of you may know that Lightstone also does a whole lot of work for NAMSA. They are the ones that are responsible for reporting the NAMSA statistics. So yeah, thank you. I thought I must just mention that in terms of leasing, that's the decision that was taken. So we'll move on right now to just share some of the highlights and the lowlights, in our industry. Right. Okay. Talking about the leasing section, there was a need for us, to relook at the numbers, because we identified some inconsistencies in just some of the numbers that were coming in, and obviously it does happen, particularly with those that were not with us for only just recently joined, and just the understanding of the data definition. And we then held a data forum meeting in May, a very fruitful one, where we then re-looked at all the definitions and agreed on industry key measurement definitions. And we're using this as well to also at least, as we get new members, they're also, familiarized with the various definitions. And these were accordingly adopted by the members. So they'll be circulated accordingly to all the members. So this is just an ongoing work that we do, perhaps at least on a every other year, and we've done that with rental as well, where we had to restate some of the numbers, having identified some anomalies. In terms of education, you will recall that Savrala partnered with Southern Business School way back in 2018, to develop a short course in fleet management aimed at more senior individuals entering the vehicle and leasing fleet management industry. It's actually quite disheartening, enrollments from Savrala members into the fleet management programs that are offered by Stadio is currently non-existent. You'll recall that I think in the last meeting I did indicate that the Southern Business School was taken over by Stadio. So these enrollments are of serious concern, really, in that there's basically they're almost non-existent. Despite the fact that I think we shared the education collateral with the members, a whole lot of work went into creating and building, this course that was really geared towards, the senior executives entering our industry. So Savrala members, which are mainly offered via the higher certificate in management, and these were basically just designed for that. So I'd like to just make an appeal to the members that we've gone a long way to work with Stadio in this regard, because we've identified education as one of our key focus areas. And there is a need for us to improve at least the level of education in our industry. So, which is why we basically went through, that whole process that involved a whole lot of members. Stadio, as I said, management rather has now questioned the viability of the continuation of the modules, and understandably, with respect to the course at advanced level, Stadio has only received a request from a single Savrala employee to date, which then also puts the viability of this offering as a module at Stadio at risk of being withdrawn. We have engaged Stadio in this regard to say that we'll resuscitate our efforts and engage our members accordingly. There is a likelihood, having spoken to a few, that just the COVID as well has really impacted on their ability to, relook at their training needs. However, we've been assured that Stadio will continue to support, particularly the FLM 400, which was created by the members themselves. A very good, course that was created by Savrala. So they'll continue to support FML 400 in view of the fact that this is a new offering, and that it is an independent module that does not rely on enrollment from the higher certificate or any of their diplomas. So I think this is very important. We've invested a lot of time and money in this area, and we feel that as one of our key focus areas to improve the level of education, it's important for members to, ensure that at least, they relook at their training needs, and would like to really make a request for members, that they should enroll for the higher certificate, alternatively request short learning programs. And these, are created at least specifically for Savrala as well. So we'll put these, collateral information as well on the website, so that at least members, particularly those that are new that may not have received the collateral that was circulated to all the members, will make sure that it's in our website as well. So we need to enroll and get the enrollments to 40 per annum, just about 20 per semester, to make it viable for Stadio to continue this. As I indicated, we've negotiated with them, and they've assured us that at least they'll still, continue with that agreement. And the cutoff date for members to enroll is end of February for the first semester and end of July for the second semester. All right. And then in terms of just safety and security, this is a very important, process within our industry. We've always had a focus. In fact, previously, as you may know, we've worked with government, the Department of Tourism, to create what was then referred to as a tourism safety initiative. However, there has been some changes which have forced us to ensure that at least, we collaborate with other stakeholders in the industry. So we continue with those, efforts to ensure the development of an industry level view or approach to combat crime. So currently, we're reviewing terms of reference with a possible strategic partner. And hopefully we'll give a firm update on the developments in that area. In terms of POPIA, I know members have heard a lot about POPIA. I think it's important just for us to highlight what is currently going on. As you all know, on the 1st of July 2021, all South African businesses were legally required to start processing and handling, storing personal information in accordance with POPIA. We had an information session with Clyde and company, who unpacked the topic and helped members to prepare their car rental and leasing businesses for the 1st of July D-Day. We then, arranged a Savrala high-level guide to POPIA compliance, which was developed and circulated to the members accordingly. It wasn't the end of the process. Obviously, it's a continuous thing, and we again have engaged Clyde and company. Requested them to look at the possible POPIA implications on the sharing of bed renter information amongst the Savrala members, which is something that's very key, particularly in the rental section. On the 21st of August, Clyde and company hosted the first 2 sessions in relation to the sharing of renter information. And this was hosted with all the risk managers. There is some concern as to the current level of compliance with POPIA Act in respect of this important data sharing practice. So the first session, being an information gathering session, was conducted to better understand the practicalities and some of the nuances of the current data sharing practice, which is either via WhatsApp, via email platforms, with reference to the information obtained from members, when the questionnaire was circulated to the risk members. So Clyde and company will be considering all the information received during the first session and developing recommendations to provide assistance to members to better understand some of the key provisions and obligations under POPIA that may be impacted by this processing activity. These are also just efforts that we do with the risk community. It's quite a busy subcommittee within Savrala, particularly as a result of crime incidents that we experience, particularly on the rental front. So that's the update on POPIA. And in terms of just ARTO, I think ARTO is very key, and a whole lot of information was shared with the members on ARTO. A comprehensive ARTO update was issued. I issued it on the 30th of June, and it covered what was to be expected in July 1st, when the minister was going to unveil basically ARTO. I thought it was important to just capture, even though it was well publicized, the phased approach to the ARTO national rollout. Just summarize it. Basically, the summary is that it will be introduced in phases, and phase 1 started in the 1st of July, and it ends on the 30th of September. And it consists of establishing of 7 service outlets, enable the NACHIS system to collect ARTO payments at collecting agents, allowing elective options to be processed, and then the last is basically just the communication and education awareness campaigns that they are conducting as well. So that is the phase 1. There's a whole lot of engagements that are continuing, which I'll refer to as we continue. And in phase 2, which starts on the 1st of October, and we're targeting that phase 2, that a lot of these engagements that we've had at NEDLEC at least have been completed by the start of phase 2, 1st October. And that phase 2, as I said, starts in 1st October right up to the 31st of October. And it's coming online of around about 67 local and metropolitan municipalities, and the establishment of more 18 service outlets. The whole adjudication process will come online, and then the appeals tribunal is also will be coming in full steam. And the last 2 phases, which is phase 3 and phase 4, are due to start next year, with the phase 4 in July 2022. And there we're looking at basically the controversial points demerit system coming fully online. And we're hoping that in all these engagements that are outstanding, that all of these will be cleared, and we shall find some sort of resolution with the Department of Transport. Just some bit of updates. I did refer to the bilaterals, that were taking place. In fact, it was quite very controversial in that it's unconventional for any regulations to be, declared and introduced before the process at NEDLEC is completed. However, because of some of the challenges that were met with ARTO. The NEDLEC process was not completely finalized by the time the minister introduced ARTO, which is part of the reason why, in fact, they decided on, a phased approach. However, bilaterals, technical engagements were held with members of the RTIA, and in July and August, where the following was agreed. I think this is quite important that these bilaterals continue to take place, we're hoping that at least they'll get us closer to resolving some of the main outstanding items. One of the key things that one of the few key items that were agreed was to arrange a business analyst. Savrala will certainly do that, arranging a business analyst to define, the particular interface and map out exactly what is currently catered in the APIs or interfaces that are provided by government. And work has started to do that. As I've indicated, we've had quite 2 bilateral meetings already with the Department of Transport, RTIA, both the RTIA agency and RTMC, basically looking at this. And the second one will be looking at arranging for a pilot to be conducted to look at basically some integration with ARTO, and we'll identify 1 or 2 members where we'll do this pilot. And lastly, but not least, the preparation of just an advisory note of sorts that will be shared with the RTIA through Savrala. So we're targeting to finalize these planned activities by the end of the first phase, which is the 1st of October. So work is really happening behind the scenes. So in terms of updates, I think that's where we end for now. We will be providing further, information on the developments in ARTO, certainly before or the beginning of the second phase. At this stage, we'll go to the MOTI, and I'd like to just call upon Marietta, who will then take us through developments at MOTI.
Thank you, Sandile. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Sandile, do you have the presentation there? Okay.
Yeah.
Right, so MOTI stands for the Manufacturer of the Year. So it's a piece of research that we do twice a year, in which we aim to measure the levels of service and support that the various OEMs offer to the rental and leasing industry. So the way that we conduct that is that we issue surveys to all the rental and leasing companies who are Savrala members, and we ask them to evaluate the service. It's a very comprehensive questionnaire, so there are lots of criteria on which they need to evaluate each of the OEMs with whom they have had interactions in the last year. And we do 2 rounds every year. So round 1 was already completed in April. So round 2 at the moment is in progress. So you should all have received your evaluation forms. Please, 17 September is going to jump out all over the presentation. It's critical that I have your completed surveys by the 17th, please. So you have the option of either doing it online by clicking on the link in your invitation email, or you can download the Excel sheet if you find that easier to complete, and then just return that to me by email. And then we combine the results that we received from both round 1 and round 2. Everything goes into one set of analysis from where we then determine who will be crowned the Manufacturer of the Year for each of rental and leasing, and then combined for overall. And while you are all busy completing the surveys, Lightstone is busy at the moment collecting all the BEE certificates. So we're collecting the latest one that must be valid for during August, September 2021, as BEE is quite a large component of the evaluations as well. So we're on a very tight timeline, because we have to have everything completed by October, when the results will be announced. So to be eligible for, thank you, Sandile, you can move over. So from an OEM point of view, you can go to the next slide, Sandile. Thanks. An OEM must accumulate at least 6 evaluations over the 2 rounds, round 1 and round 2 of interviewing, which basically means that at least 6 companies must have evaluated an OEM to be able for them to receive an award. It doesn't matter what the distribution between round 1 and round 2 is, as long as in total we have at least a minimum of 6 completed surveys for that OEM. And then we also look at the weighting of each of the rental and leasing companies. So based on their fleet size, each rental leasing company is allocated a certain weighting, and for the winners, the weighting from the companies who rated them must at least be 13. Again, it's accumulated over the 2 rounds, and then all the winners must be Savrala members. So another criteria, thanks Sandile, another component rather of MOTI is that we like to reward our representatives. So in each of the nomination forms, we ask the rental and leasing companies to nominate 2 individuals for best account representative as well as best technical representative. So again, that they can do that in both rounds, and all the votes are then counted. So the best representative is really the person who has accumulated the most votes over the 2 rounds. However, sometimes it's very spread out and there's no clear winner, and it's 1 vote here, 3 votes there, 2 votes here. So there's no clear winner standing out. So should that happen, then we again go back and we apply the weights from the company who nominated each of those individuals. Although I must just mention that it usually works out, whether I apply weights or not, that our winners are clear-cut. Thank you, Sandile. Right, so what problems do we sometimes experience? The OEMs are taking the results quite seriously, and sometimes feel that they are being treated unfairly and rated unfairly by the rental and leasing companies. So if you feel as the person completing the survey that a criteria is not really applicable to you, or you haven't had that much interaction on that particular point, please just use the not applicable option on the questionnaire. Each question has a not applicable option, so that we ensure that we are being fair towards the OEMs. Another problem is certain rental and leasing companies choosing not to participate. Considering that we have a relatively small sample base, at this stage for round 2, we work with 22 leasing and 16 rental companies. It's really imperative that every single person complete their survey so that we have a representative result at the end of the day. I know it's a very long questionnaire, but please do take the time to rate the service. Another problem is often the surveys not being received on time. So again, 17 September, please get those submissions in before then. Sandile and I will be chasing you down. So, and to a point where I suppose it can be rather irritating. So please just avoid that by giving us your survey on time. And then another problem is that sometimes individuals are not nominated. Sometimes it's just left blank, or instead of an individual, they will just say, I vote for a certain OEM. As I explained earlier on, we do have awards for each of the account reps and technical reps. So those are based on the vote. So if you do not nominate someone, again, we cannot make those awards. So please take some time to think about if you feel someone deserves that award. So where do we go from here? Like I said, thanks, Andile, you can move over. We are currently in field 4, round 2. So you should have received yours. If you have not received it, please check your inbox, your spam, your junk mail, or alternatively just drop myself or Sandile a note that we can resend to you. Most important thing is please participate and please do that on time, and just be honest when you do your surveys. If service was poor, then this is your opportunity to rate them, but this is not the time really to try and hurt the OEM for something that happened 5 years ago. That's not what we're looking for after. We just want to see at this point in time, how would you rate the service that has been received? Thank you, Sandile. And like I mentioned, we are pressured for time. We only have up to October before the results have to be completed. So I'm not sure what the format of that event will be yet, but that will be distributed. So you can look forward to having the results for all your efforts due in October. And thank you. That is all from our side.
Thank you very much, Marietta. I think, you know, at this stage, I think it's important to just allow, if you can, if there's any questions in this regard. One of the key things that we've found as a challenge, and when it comes to MOTI, was you know, basically just the delay in the submission of you know, the questionnaire. I'd like to just indicate that recently as last year, we reviewed the questionnaire, and that process involved all stakeholders, namely the OEMs themselves, both car rental and leasing sections, who then at least had the opportunity to also just make any sort of comments as we changed the questionnaire. There is a feeling that perhaps it is long. Unfortunately, it's something that we can only look at in the new year. So we will go through some review again to make it as concise as possible without losing any critical, you know, information that's required to measure performance. So yeah, I don't know if there's any questions for Marietta before she leaves, you know. But thank you very much, Marietta. You really have our full support in this.
Thank you. I look forward to the results this year.
Okay, thank you very much. At this stage, ladies and gentlemen, I think we according to our agenda, we will move on to the next item. However, I think I'd like to just flag the fact that you know, the manufacturer of the year, we're constantly monitoring, you know, the you know, lockdown conditions and requirements, and our assessment basically just based on the vaccination process, just based on developments in COVID. At this stage, we are preparing to you know, to see the NEC has taken a decision to say perhaps we should explore having some sort of dinner, and we're exploring all of that, certainly to make sure that we make it, you know, a worthwhile occasion. People have been locked in offices for a long time, but certainly we've got to be cognizant of the pandemic as well. So we will, you know, get back to yourselves to make an announcement on exactly having looked at all the available options to us, both virtual, but certainly the dinner as I've indicated. And this is you know, targeted to take place. In fact, it's scheduled to take place on the 21st of October, and I will be putting this in your diaries accordingly. Thank you. All right. And then the next item is you may have all received the invites already from Jody. The Savrala Golf Day is back. I think we haven't had Savrala Golf Day for well over 3 years now, for various reasons. However, at the request of the members, we then said perhaps it's about time that we relook at it. I'm just reading some of the messages. I'll get back to you, Mohammed. I think on Moti. I only just saw it now that will it not be worth it to review the questions, also separate OEMs from individuals. We'll look at that. We'll try and address that question. But yes, just coming back to the Savrala Golf Day, this was as a whole lot of discussions took place in terms of just holding a Savrala charity Golf Day. I think what's important is basically, as the word denotes, it's a charity golf day, and we're certainly looking at supporting a specific charity, which will also be made known to the members. We are at the moment in discussion with the identified charity. During this period, particularly, where with COVID, we've identified a lot of challenges in terms of this, and we just felt, I think it's important to hold, apart from getting out of the office, but also, with the relaxation of lockdown, restrictions, and also just the ramp up on vaccinations. We felt that, I think, as part of our, social responsibility effort as well, I think it's important to just hold one. The invites have gone out to all the members, and Jody will accordingly, follow up with yourselves. And I'd like to just urge members to please, if you could, perhaps respond positively in this regard. All right. And then the next item is we have a guest speaker. I have a bit of a challenge in that I only received during the meeting. It was slightly, disturbing to a large extent, in that I think they've tried to reach me as well, but also the presentation was sent to me during the meeting. The meeting had already started when the presentation was sent to me. But our speaker is Mr. Dominic Pitot, who's the CEO of Inexico. I'll just read out. I just want to load this so that at least I load his presentation. Whilst loading the presentation, and I trust that he's also joined the meeting, perhaps just to reflect on who Dominic is, where he comes from, just his bio, just so that people know exactly, so that people know exactly who he is. Dominic has worked on 4 continents for several multinational and entrepreneurial businesses, including Anglo-American and Siemens, focusing primarily on business development, technology, and data in Africa. His experience in developing business in challenging environments gives him an edge when assisting clients to identify risks and develop strategies to grow their businesses in developing countries. In 2015, Dominic joined Inexico, helping the company to become a leading provider of trade credit analytics in developing countries, enabling millions of businesses to give and receive trade credit. Trade credit is the most important form of growth capital in developing countries. And Inexico's purpose is to enable clients to invest sustainably in their customers' growth. Apart from speaking several languages, Dominic has several qualifications, including masters in financial economics from Oxford, masters in economics, in economic and social history from Oxford as well, and BSc in electrical and computer engineering from the University of Cape Town. It is indeed a pleasure to welcome Dominic. If you could just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, and whilst I load his presentation as well. All right. At this stage, I'll also just provide, ask if I know that Mahmoud had a specific question that he wanted to ask relating to Moti, and I thought perhaps it to just be the right time whilst we're loading this this presentation, which only came through whilst we were busy. Basically, the meeting had started already. Mohammed, do you want to just perhaps come through and ask your question whilst I'm loading?
Thank you, Sandile. So during my engagements with some of the OEMs, they felt that the leasing and rental industry wasn't really separating the questions from what is being asked about your support from the OEM and the support from the individual that actually calls on you. And I think that's where a lot of discrepancy has been coming from, and a lot of people have been marked negatively where they should be marked positively. So I think that there needs to be a clear understanding on, are you marking the OEM at this point, or are you marking the individual that actually calls on you? That would benefit both parties, the OEM and the individual that's being scored.
I think these are some of the questions that are posed when we relook at the question itself. But also, if you read up just the material that goes with the questionnaire, and there are warning and the requirements in that are clearly stated in the Moti document as well that addresses that. I think whilst I take the point, it's something that we're dealing with human beings here. For instance, for example, there is a request that the survey is not conducted by one individual, but by a number of individuals that may have sort of touch points with a particular OEM. There are instances where a survey is just conducted by one person, and in a big company, and we don't have control over that, except that we can we insist on at least a list of that the number of people that may have taken part in assessing or conducting the survey and answering the various questions. We insist on that list so that they are reflected as well. And that's the only guarantee we have that at least it didn't involve one person. So certainly, I think your point is taken, and we'll reflect on it as well with Lightstone, and to see how best can we avoid those situations, and I don't know if that addresses your question. Thank you. So at this stage, I'd like to just call upon our guest speaker, who will then take us through the presentation. Dominic, over to you, sir. You came right on time, Dominic. Over to you. I've already introduced you in your absence to the members. I think you can take over and take us through your presentation. Sorry, I thought I saw Dominic. Apparently, he's just joining in, and yeah. Take it that my humble apologies, colleagues. It appears that Dominic is just having challenges in joining in, and if you could just give us just a moment. But he certainly, I saw him come in, and I thought I'd admitted him, but looks like he's still battling to come through. So just to give it a minute. We always try during these forums to pick on, relevant, topics that would really benefit our members, and it is for that reason that we, arranged with Inoxico to also just provide this important, subject on trade, create profit in the automotive sector. Right, let me just check if he's in now. Let me just give him a call.
Good morning.
Dominic, over to you. People have been waiting for the last almost 5 minutes now. It's
Apologies, sir. I had
slightly embarrassing. Yeah, over to you. I've already introduced you, and I'm not going to waste any time. And
brilliant. Are you going to shift
right
through the slides for me, or do I need to share my screen? You're going to shift through.
Fine. It's there already. I'll do it for you. Okay.
Great. Thanks so much, guys. We do appreciate the opportunity to chat to you guys. We are, in a very interesting stage in Inoxico's history here. And apologies, I had a very big client, keeping me on the phone for the last 20 minutes. So I want to give you a quick introduction to Inoxico, where we've been, what we're aiming to do. Talk to you a little bit about, I think, interesting topic is the trade credit profit. We'll get into more detail, and then how does that relate to your sector and the automotive sector? And then let's talk about some questions. And I've got to keep this quick and short. So let's maybe keep the questions till the end. I'll try and make sure I don't take up too much time so we can go into some of the more details if you like. Let's go to the next slide. So on the next slide, we don't call ourselves a credit bureau, although we are a registered credit bureau. Just an introduction to us is we're more of a technology company that provides trade credit analytics. We are specifically focused on business-to-business analytics, and what we're trying to do is help clients improve their trade credit profitability. So we've shifted a lot from where normal credit bureaus are in terms of trying to give you a report. Most bureaus are thinking about that. We are a lot more about actually trying to make your business more profitable by helping you extend better credit. And overall, our mission is the second portion is helping businesses to grow by helping their suppliers give them more credit, growth capital. Right? It is so important in economies like South Africa. The role the credit managers play, they are kind of like bank managers, giving credit at a very important stage of companies' lives in order to enable them to do their business. So you as a credit manager are actually an investor in your customers' business, and you want to get a return on that investment. And we are passionate about making that really possible. So extending credit optimally to the right customers. And then the last part is our vision. That's about what we want to achieve. The next portion, you can go to that. Next portion is trade credit profits. Right. So this is a little picture I stole, but often what happens is this is the view at least of sales. They go out, they do a whole huge amount of work to convince clients, and they are then told by credit that they can't do this. And there's this fight between credit and sales always, and we never really live up to the customer's expectations because there's this difference in what sales wants to achieve and what credit wants to achieve, and we struggle to overcome that. If you just click once more, there'll be a couple of things that come up. So what does sales think credit is doing? Sales might think DSO stands for defeat sales objective. Or if you click again, there'll be some people call DSO destroy the sales outlook. And if we've all been in these situations where there's a fight between, let's go back quickly, fight between what is credit trying to achieve and what is sales trying to achieve, and sales doesn't listen to credit, and sales doesn't understand that the risks are involved with getting payment, and credit is always viewed as being restrictive. And I think a lot of it's got to do in our view that DSO and bad debt is typically what we are measured on in credit space, and that's the cost. And so we're all about reducing the cost of credit when we're not incentivized to increase the profitability that comes from the credit that we extend. Right? And this is where we think that a lot of the analytics that we can provide, or a lot of the work that we're doing with clients these days, is how to highlight and how to grow the profitability of the business with the credit that you extend. Now you can go to the next slide. That sets it up. What do we talk about when we talk about trade credit profit? Right, it's a measure about the total impact of the credit that you give. So both the positive side and the negative side. And if you think about financial institutions, they would look at the credit that they extend as a portfolio of loans, and they want to look at the performance that those loans give you. They don't only look at the cost of credit, they look at the profit generated from extending that credit. And more so in the trade credit space, there's a huge amount of opportunity to increase your profitability, because you're not just selling money, you're actually selling goods that have a relatively decent margin in many cases. And so your trade credit that you offer is actually generating a huge amount of profit. And that's the second part. Like, what would we measure? We'd measure the additional profit that's generated through the trade credit that you offer to your clients. Obviously, you've got cash on delivery, or you've got customers, let's say on debit order, on credit card sales. It's not quite the same. But what is the profit that is being supported by the credit that you extend, and measure that over time. And then if you look at the costs associated, we include working capital costs, which is what DSO is measuring to some degree, expected credit losses. So, in that world, we're obviously looking at expected credit losses. What do we think is going to happen in the future? You might extend credit today, but the bad debts that arise from that may come in 6 months' time or 12 months' time. You should be understanding what that view looks like today. And you include other costs, insurance, your securities costs, even the cost of your credit team, the systems. So you get a holistic picture. When you ask for more resources as a credit team, you should be able to show that you've actually generated more profit, not just obviously more cost. And this is the challenge that we're trying to help our clients to get over, is finding a relative performance measurement that incentivizes credit in a way that's appropriate with the risks that you're taking and aligns it also with the sales team. And this is nothing terribly new. I think that the concept has always been understood that the credit and sales have different targets, but how to combine these two is not really been well looked into. And we've put in a lot of work into how to be able to create a measure that over time you can see the impact that the credit team is having on the profitability of a business. It enables them to take the appropriate risk. So where there's a good opportunity to go for something, but there is risk associated, it will probably increase your DSO. It might increase your bad debt, but on average, it's actually going to increase your profits. Credit teams should get some credit for that. Don't mind the pun. And so this is where you think is a really important key point to start off with. And then if I go into the next slides, I can talk a little bit to what we see as in the automotive sector, you know, the things that have changed in the market that allow you to drive more profitability for your business through the credit that you extend. Okay, racing through this, but I think that was a hugely important topic. And I don't know if there's a lot of companies out there, you know, certainly our competitors don't understand trade credit in this way that they can help you understand the profitability that it drives. Very simplistically, we split the process that you guys follow, we all follow into the origination or new accounts and portfolio management or account management. We use origination and portfolio management as our terms because it's a lot closer to what the financial sector actually uses. And I think if we think in the way that financing works, I think we've got the right approach to understanding the profitability that we can create. So, you know, I'm not going to talk too much about our products, but in origination, one of the things you guys, I understand, struggle with is that you've got to respond very quickly to new opportunities. A panel beater comes along, needs new product, and as we know, panel beaters, they are very, very short-lived. They open up new ones all the time. And so you don't understand this new guy or this new business that's come along, but he wants to buy from you very quickly or he'll go down the road. So you've got this problem of lack of information and a customer that's requires a very quick answer. And for this, automation obviously plays a big role if you can do that. Right? There is opportunities in the market now. You've got really good options for automating that credit application process. One part is to get the information from the customer, to onboard them, get the documents that you need, make that process really, really smooth and quick so that your credit personnel are not sitting there trying to collect documents through emails, that you've actually got a pretty solid way to do that. That's great. And then once you get the information from the bureaus and from your customer all together, you can push it through decision engines. There's already, you know, Avis is one of our customers, uses our decision engine. There's a lot that you can do once you've started to set up a decision-making process, and you can automate that for a large proportion of your decisions. Your team can focus again on other matters. Get those new clients in quickly. A small thing is here is we try to help our clients say there is probably small limits that you're willing to give away. Get the client on board quickly, get them to buy on day one, and we can update their credit limit over the next week while we wait for additional information to arrive. Or, you know, sometimes there's other additional decision-making or approval levels that you've got to go through. You don't want the customer to walk away, but you want to be able to give them quickly within a couple of minutes an answer. Or in our world, we're typically focusing on trying to get a 30-minute turnaround time for most of the limits that you need. And decision engines and automation really helps you on that. One problem we've had in the market recently is we know that bank codes have been depended on very heavily for decision making. They've A, got very slow, and B, because of POPIA, some of the banks now no longer provide them at all. And many of the banks are now requiring additional consent, slowing the process down. And then you've got some banks, I won't name names, but who are continuously extremely slow and always behind. And by the time the bank code reaches you, it's more or less useless. So we do have a problem that we need to be able to find a way to assess a new customer quickly. And what's typically done in other sectors, not so much in trade credit, is a statement analysis of their bank account. And it's not a perfect process, but certainly gives you a very quick understanding of what's the headroom is of that client, what's their capacity to pay, and a little bit of behavioral information in there as well. I haven't mentioned it in here, but Inoxico also has a lot of trade data. This is and pushed into this next slide here. But also, so you automate maybe the bank code through the bank statement analysis, and you can automate your trade references through the trade data that comes from the sector. You can now make a huge number of these decisions within 30 minutes to an hour. You really shouldn't have to wait longer than that for most decisions. Now you've onboarded a customer, we talk about portfolio management. How do you maximize the profitability from this portfolio of loans that you've given out to your customers? It's not just about reducing DSO. That is important. You don't want to waste your working capital on businesses that are paying poorly. And you definitely want to make sure your collections processes are optimized, you get the money in as best you can. But in some cases, you should actually be trying to extend more credit to good customers. You need to identify them. And when you've got hundreds and thousands of customers, your credit controllers don't have the time or the ability to see through all the opportunities that are there in your book. And that's where you need the analytics to be played on your existing book as well. So by pulling data from the bureaus like us, and from your data and from others within the industry, I know there's sharing agreements there, you are able to not just see the downside risks, those are important, but also the upside. And again, measure that. You want to find a way to make sure that you can see how much additional credit have you extended to customers that you would not normally have done more business with, and how much value has that then generated for you. And this plays both into the fleet space as well as into the parts businesses. You don't know whether your customers are using multiple providers. To some degree, you only see your picture of them, but analytics tools like this can help you to identify where there's gaps, where you can push the client to take a bit more credit, and you can be working with your sales team then to say, hey guys, from the data we have and analytics we have, here are some opportunities we want you to go and investigate. Other things as well, give clients, settlement discounts, whatever you need to understand your broader picture, identify the opportunities, and then build your strategies around that. And I think specifically in your sector, there's such a premium on speed. It's so aggressive. There's low margins and there's very aggressive competitors out there, all playing in the same pool, looking for the same good clients, and you need the information and analytics capabilities to be able to identify those. Everybody knows the top 20 in your book, but it's the rest of your book that you need a lot of assistance to make sure that you can extract the most out of it. Okay, so just to bring it back, it's if you are able to try and understand what's the profit impact that your credit makes on your business, and make sure that you maximize profit, not just minimize costs of credit. Both play a role. You don't want to extend credit too far, but you also want to make sure that you are not restricting the growth of your business in this sector, which is so competitive. If you are not the one out there pushing hard and your sales team isn't pushing hard with the credit team behind them, you are going to find that a competitor will take up the opportunity. And then sometimes they're going to get it right, sometimes they won't. Okay, let's go for some questions then. I think that was, hopefully that was speedy enough. Hopefully that's of value to you guys. I would love to understand if you guys have thought about measuring the profitability that credit gives your business. If there are alternative ways you've measured the impact of credit, or if it's still mostly focusing on working capital costs, DSO, etc. Thanks, Adile.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Dominic. It doesn't look like there's any questions, but we'll give it a moment or so to see if there's any questions. Certainly, the whole topic of credit is very important, particularly during this period. Where I think it's a very. I know that I put pressure on yourselves to make it as brief as possible, because we do have time pressures, and we've got to be definitely out of here by exactly 11 o'clock. So any questions from members? Let me just give it a moment.
Was there any unusual? Do you guys measure anything that you find has helped to bring sales and credit together, help them to align better? And that's worked over time.
Well, all I know is that, we from a Savrala perspective, we more interested in looking at, industry comparative, stats to see how well, we're doing against the various industries, either the construction industry or, or any other, the mining industry on the various areas that you spoke about. Certainly, it would be interesting. I mean, that's the sort of thing. But obviously, it just depends on how much data and the company is fairly new at this stage. So, but that's exactly what we would really be interested in as a an industry body. But the individual members may just have different requirements as well. Certainly.
Well, we do industry reports. It's very interesting because you do then see differentiating trends, and there's reasons why certain industries is more difficult to achieve certain DSOs. Certainly would be interesting to look. I think the last one we did was on manufacturing early in August. It'd be great to do a special report probably on the automotive sector. Our portfolio analytics, it's part of what it does is it does compare you to your peers and to other industries, helps you to identify the ours would be more specific to your business, but certainly it's possible for us to look at an industry level difference. That's where more the industry reports is where you could then say, okay, how does this industry compare to others? What you do with that, though, I still think is very important and how it should help you to identify where and which customers and which customer segments are the ones where you are not getting the maximum value from, right? So, maybe some sectors are just better at collecting from their customers than you are. You may have the same customers. That's what I mean. I think that you are. I would love to be able to get it to that level because the industry level is very valuable for comparison of your performance. But to generate profit out of individual customers, I think that's also what everyone's kind of holy grail is. That's where you want to get to, is which ones can I focus on.
All right.
Very good.
Well, thank you very much. I think in the absence of any questions, I mean, we will certainly reach out as, an industry body, perhaps just to, find out more about some of your offerings. As I indicated, our interest would really be on the various, industry sort of, comparative reports. If you can churn any, certainly, but you've indicated already that you have dealings with some of our members, and so that in itself, perhaps we could engage yourself afterwards. All right. But
I'll send you the sample, our manufacturing industry sample, which we recently completed, and see if that's the kind of thing that you're looking for. Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. I think at this stage we'll go back to our agenda. According to our agenda, and I trust that the members found that interesting. And Inexeco is a relatively new, but I think it's over 10 years it's been in South Africa. But I just thought perhaps it's always good to get a different perspective. We drove them to, come up with a very brief presentation, but certainly we'll engage them further for the benefit of the membership. According to our I think the next item on the agenda is basically just trying to load again. It's basically just remarks by the president, and I'm not too sure. I know he was very pressed with time. I'm not too sure if
Sandile, he's given his apologies. He has left.
Yes.
He did ask that if there are any questions for the president, that he did mention that Derek might be able to assist.
Look, I'll hand over to Derek to just provide perhaps just some remarks before I come up with my closing remarks. Derek, over to you.
Thanks a lot, Sandile. Apologies, Konay just had to rush to a very important meeting that came on the last hour. Just from my side, good morning to all the members. The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented challenges to us which I don't think any of us had in our 5-year plans. So we all got our 3-year plans and 5-year plans and didn't really anticipate this. So though extremely difficult, we've also seen some great innovation coming from the industry during these times, and also looking at other revenue opportunities which were widely accepted by the market. So that's definitely seen as a positive. But I would like to briefly touch on 3 topics. I think after the devastating 2020, due to COVID-19, it's very encouraging to see the early signs of recovery in our markets. Looking at the data received from our members, it would appear that both the car rental and leasing sector has bottomed out and showing early signs of recovery. This is also supported by the July report issued by the SA Tourism, and also the forward vehicle orders to our associated members. Both very positive and indicative of anticipated uptick in the rental and leasing volumes as we head towards the end of the year, which is really promising. In general, I'm very excited about the prospects in the segments and should yield positive bottom line results by the end of the year and next year. Secondly, with the phased implementation of R2, it has allowed our members the opportunity to really ready their business systems and operations as we head towards full implementation on the 1st of July, 2022. I would like to thank Sandile and the R2 subcommittee for their efforts. To date, we have navigated this well despite of all the challenges, and have also established a technical working committee to pilot direct integration with the eNatus systems. We believe, if successful, would significantly de-risk the impact of R2 on all our members, and happy to share more on the progress on this very important topic in the near future. Lastly, after some robust engagements with most of our members in 2020, we undertook to reevaluate our value proposition, realign our priorities, and keep Savrala relevant to all of us. After placing this on the back burner as we navigated the challenges of 2020 and 21 of COVID, the NEC will ensure we conclude this by the end of the year and communicate back to our members. We also encourage all our members to participate and engage on the various initiatives embarked by Savrala to ensure we add value to your respective businesses. If there are any other matters or support you require from us, I encourage you to reach out to the respective committee members in order for us to add value. Thank you once again for your time and your continued support, and the best of luck as we head towards the end of this year. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Derek. Thanks for the encouraging words, and I'm sure, we really look forward to, strengthening our resolve as well as we continue on the recovery path, after COVID. Thank you for those remarks. I think basically there aren't any announcements. The announcements were in a way made during the various presentations. One being the fact that we're targeting the 21st of October as the Moti Awards, function to take place on the day, and we're looking at least a dinner. However, we're working very closely with some of these councils working on the pandemic. We're monitoring the situation as well, so that at least we don't put our members in danger. So an announcement will be made accordingly. But yes, we're reviewing that, and the decision has been made to go the dinner route. And then I think if I could just also make a plea for members to register their employees. A lot had taken place, a lot of investment in terms of just time from fairly senior executives in developing a specific course directed at leasing as we, in our efforts to improve the levels of education in our industry. We would really appreciate if you could just make sure that at least you start, those enrollments with Stadio. I will certainly make these available again, particularly for those that have not really received the marketing collateral, but we'll make it available as well in our website. I think those are the two key announcements at this stage. Perhaps in closing, the outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic had a significant impact on the sector, during 2020 and 2021. And, it's been spoken so much about our numbers, our stats reflects that as well. President Ramaphosa announced various measures, to combat the spread of COVID-19 in South Africa. And these measures were in line with what other countries were doing in reducing travel within the country and inbound, travel in particular. In addition, a travel ban on selected foreign nationals from high-risk countries into South Africa was communicated on the 18th of March, if you recall, and then of the 53 land ports, just the state of affairs in our country, 53 land ports, 35 were shut down, and 2 of the 8 seaports as well. The level 5, one has not really imagined that we'd at this stage find ourselves at least in this level. But you'll recall that the level 5, hard lockdown was introduced last year on the 26th of March, 2020. It really resulted in tourism numbers dropping drastically for both incoming foreign arrivals. It's dropped well below, beyond almost 70%, from over 15.8 million in 2019 to less than 5 million in 2020. And this decline shows the devastation of COVID to the South African travel and tourism. And I think right now, that's why my belief is that, we've got to work closely with government, who have, put together a recovery plan. And we're working as well with, the likes of BUSA, the Tourism Business Council of South Africa, and just to make sure that at least we also are aligned as well with the rest of the industry in making sure that we recover fully as an industry. So on that note, I think basically I'd like to thank the members, and I'd like to again welcome all the new members, and I trust that they'll find some value in the membership with Savrala. A whole lot of our subcommittees had been suspended for various reasons, but certainly we're looking right now. We can't wait to meet personally at some stage, and I'm hoping that perhaps our next session will be able to have it in a conference venue of sorts, so members can really meet in person. But we are reviving those, but these are very effective ones, being your risk subcommittee, the closed user group, which is the credit managers, and we'll revive these certainly before the close of the year, as there are developments that require us to meet with those subcommittees. But the various sectoral meetings will be taking place, the next one being the leasing side, where we will be again looking at the developments on the leasing side, and though communication will go out accordingly to all the leasing members on the next meeting. So on that note, I think basically it just concludes our meeting, unless there's anything perhaps members would like to say, but an official announcement will be made on the AGM, which takes place in October. An invite will be sent accordingly to the members. It's a very important meeting. This, I think, that's where you really get feedback on the finances of the organization, as well as I've indicated, I think, in my opening remarks, but also just the general, performance for the year. That is. I think it's also an opportunity because it may just be an elective AGM. It's also an opportunity for people to make themselves available. But on that note, I'd like to really thank everyone for attending, and it was really indeed a pleasure to have you after this long. Thank you very much. Okay. That's about it.